Hi, so good morning and welcome to another episode of Monkhouse on Mondays, which is going out on Wednesdays and Fridays as well because we're so busy. I'd just like to introduce you to Phil Aitken. Phil, I've known personally for a while, and we'll work out why I know Phil personally in a bit. But Phil, just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah, obviously I'm from background, I'm very much from an engineering perspective, worked in many different industries across different functions. Worked for brands such as Rolls-Royce, Siemens Microelectronics, Avery Dennison, and most recently Guardian News and Media for almost 10 years. And now I'm at the stage of looking upon being self-employed and bringing a lot of that skill set back to workplace and industries as a whole.
Excellent, good. Okay, so the bits that we've been talking about in these conversations is about how we can recover the experience for our customers. And one of the big things is making sure that our buildings are healthy and safe for when we do reopen those buildings. So what sort of things do you think our leisure centres, our gyms, etc., should be doing now to make sure they're ready for when we get the unlock notification?
Yeah, it's a big question for all industries, absolutely, 100%. And I think from a leisure perspective, it's very similar. And there's elements that can be done on the basis of being ready and fit to be future-proofed going forward, post being released. But I think there's a lot of aspects that can be done prior to that time as well to make the building itself more efficient and effective from a cost perspective and from an operational excellence. And one of those points which can be done with no activity is a good, sound energy survey.
So what does an energy survey mean? I'm going to guess because we've got this great opportunity where our building is empty, so we've got a baseline almost. So we know what our minimum gas, electricity, water usage and consumption is. So how does the energy survey type thing work?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely on the mark. It's profiling the building's energy use, and when it is obviously not in use, it's a good time to get that base load, and that base load is your fixed cost. It is that element within your financials that sits and takes away some of your profit without any activity. And it's a good time to observe that, obviously, in the audit process within that, observe activity as well, so it can plan the BMS system and the controls associated to it to optimize the controls, but also attack the base load and drive that down to a minimum level, so that when you're only using power requirements for the activities of your profit-making exercises. And
okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and some of that is operational excellence, and some of that is energy surveys and opportunities, but it's also a people and culture perspective as well.
Yeah,
because not everything can be solved from a commercial and excellence of automation. It's a body of people who will make it work in its entirety.
Okay, so if an organisation was interested in getting that base load now, what's the commitment? What will they need to do?
Well, a lot of it is getting information from the utilities provider, and it can be seen as very much a huge dark art, but there's a lot of opportunities that can arise once the questions are asked. And being understanding there's a lot of terminology differences, and it can get complex to an extent. But occupational profile, distribution availabilities, your base load, and your half-hourly data can quite readily be found from your utilities provider with a conversation with themselves, and that can go back as far as you wish, really, to be able to understand what that energy use and base load has been. But also, an energy survey will fundamentally focus on your contracts, so it's very commercial from a procurement perspective. So so it allows you to make sure that every element is effective and efficient. The operation itself, making sure that the BMS control system is operating at a level what is required, but also from a commercial perspective, that you're running on your best possible pence per kilowatt, whereupon the business is then seeing full fats taken away.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes a lot of sense. When we look at the accounts of most of these buildings, number one expenditure is going to be the team. It's the people that we pay to interact with our customers. But the number two expense absolutely is going to be utilities. So if we could come back fitter and leaner when we get the opportunity to open, actually that's going to really help not only the bottom right hand corner, but also cash flow as well, I guess.
100%, yeah, and that is the procurement elements, the real commercial side of the energy survey itself, and that's why a lot of businesses, move into that arena. It has typically with an energy survey, it has a 20% payback.
20%.
20% payback, yeah, on a due diligence of an energy survey, going through all the aspects that we've spoken about there. That is typically the deliverance. So any commitments on a survey from a cost perspective will completely wash its own face and give a return on investment immediately. And yeah, as you absolutely say, that puts you in a fitter place post opening.
Yeah, absolutely. And that number is enough to make anybody actually step up and listen to that, because I think that's a pretty powerful number when you start looking at the cost of these services within our buildings. Okay, excellent. So is there any government schemes, is there anything that we can get involved in that might help us? How do we go about getting one of these surveys?
Yeah, I mean, there's some legislation associated to it as well, which over 250 members of staff, or in excess of turnover around about 35 million, you have to be part of the ESOPs, which is the energy survey solutions within climate levy. It has changed its name things. It was climate change, then it was climate levy, then it was climate association, and it's all very much trying to take it down a scheme process that delivers a benefit back from a climate to allow you to be able to support the government in hitting their targets. But that is ultimately, as we've mentioned earlier, that's a huge payback from a financial perspective to yourself. But that legislation is to try and ease businesses into that idea, because it is beneficial.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that sounds really interesting, and energy, I think, is a really interesting key. I've always had a little bit of a health and safety hat, so I'm also interested in the stuff that maybe we need to think about. That's the simple stuff, like running the air conditioning units before we reopen, the Legionella type stuff. Have you got any advice or guidance around that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I'm working with ADG Group at this moment in time, I've worked with them for many years. And I've been a support, and I've been so I'm doing interim work with them now, but I've been a non-exec director with them. And that is fundamentally born around the fact of doing facilities correctly. And there will be a lot of procedures in place, but I do feel as though it's about giving customer confidence back prior to reopening, and being able to display that all the best practices have been adhered to. There will be systems that will ultimately would have closed down and stopped because of no activity. And a check on Legionella, the dead legs within water systems, the air conditioned systems that may not have been running due to the fact that it hasn't been occupied. These are certain elements that I'm working back with certain offices within Manchester to look upon the aspects associated to FM and the reopening element of it. By a lot of people have gone down the path of open office areas and hot desks. And I think post, obviously, COVID-19, there's going to be a lot of discussion on the risk assessments associated to that aspect. And I'm working with a lot of office buildings within Manchester to deliver a difference, to give employees comfort that will give them safety.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because the similarity between that and going to a gym, let's say, is very similar, isn't it? Ultimately, the treadmill is a hot treadmill. People share it. People use it when it's available. So there's a lot of similarities between the two things. Okay. So I guess the bit that you referred to there was letting people know that we've got best practice. And I've done some conversations with a guy called Christian Harris, and he does deep cleaning and floor surfaces and things like that. And we talked about how organizations can share with their customers the fact they're taking their deep cleaning seriously. And we were talking about having videos of the team cleaning and things like that. Is there anything that you would recommend to use to tell customers that actually we have taken this seriously, we are a good organization, we've put effort into making sure we're safe and hygienic?
Yeah, it's very much, and I think I alluded to it at the very part of the culture is a huge element. And within that, what we did was started sustainability teams within Guardian News and Media, and that was and they were cross-functional. So from all different avenues within the business, to come together to talk about sustainability. And a lot of it was energy borne, but then they looked at all the wastes. And what was very interesting that came back from that is all the people that were involved in those sustainability teams were coming back and they were sitting having their evening meal. Their kids were talking about the same stories, sustainability. And they were able to have an interactive conversation based on what we're doing within GNM. So what we did was we linked with the schools, and the schools came into GNM and we had a huge conversation on sustainability. And we started with school support, which is, you know, bringing in the community, bringing in the actual stakeholders, and started a campaign called WOW, which was War on Waste. And that was very because it allowed the community to be part of that process, and that is an absolute intrinsic link to be able to give, you know, your stakeholders, your community, NGOs, influencers within your industry to get an awareness of what your activities are, and that brings, you know, especially from a school perspective, because what you've got there is you've got potential new employees, and you've also got potential new members from a leisure perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've talked about culture and that link between doing the operational things right, but also about how to market it, how to tell people about it. And I know you've got some links to nurturing skills. And Leslie, so do you want to share some of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is something that's fundamental, where you can have the best operational excellence in the world, but if you don't market it correctly, nobody's going to know. And there's a huge intrinsic link, and that's where we saw my skill set within industry and being an operations director for Guardian News and Media, being able to bring that into nurturing skills and the skill sets that Leslie's got from a marketeer perspective. And that is absolutely seeing a quick story on that, and how I realised it more so than ever was that the local in the village, the local Indian restaurant, he wanted to open up and do takeaways, which is absolutely, you know, I understand that in this moment in time. And he went through a fantastic operational excellence of how he was going to be able to deliver that safely to his customers. You had separate entry door, exit door. You paid online. You had a slot where you went to pick up your takeaway. You had perspex sheets, barriers, and then there was a drop slot where actually he left it and you picked it up and walked out with different. So door, entry, door, exit. Fabulous. I spoke to him afterwards on the phone. And said, how was it going? He said, well, it was quite disappointing, unfortunately. He said, I didn't get much activity. And the problem he had is he didn't know how to get it out to his community. So he had a fabulous process in place, but was unable to then connect. He wasn't sure how, and it was interaction from his website. It was interaction from being able to maybe just drop leaflets. He didn't get it himself. But I know it's very difficult at this moment in time, I guess, from COVID-19. But he just hadn't thought, when he's brainstormed, he hadn't thought about he wasn't going to get any customers. And that demonstrated the intrinsic link between myself, nurturing skills, and the collective benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been part of a lot of our conversations, is we're having some really good conversations between us all. We're coming up with some really good ideas and we're doing some great stuff, but we've got to let people know about it. And I think that link between the pair of you within nurturing skills, I think, is a really strong one. It's been an absolutely fascinating conversation, Phil. Is there any other little tidbits that you might have for people who are watching?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is it's very difficult to get everything across in a short space of time, absolutely, but it's also very difficult to get into the real nitty-gritty of it, and being able to demonstrate the true worth at times. So I feel as though that from my perspective under ADG Group, or under myself with Leslie and the nurturing skills, very happy to be able to come along and give a free survey to allow bring it to life to other other businesses within the leisure industry. Whether it's a survey associated to show recommendations and to show benefits and opportunities, that's what the report would cover. And I think that brings it to life for that specific person themselves, which is something that I would offer, because it's ship through deliverance and sustainability is absolutely key in what makes me tick.
Absolutely. Brilliant. That's a really interesting conversation. Our time is up, unfortunately, Phil. Thank you so much for your time. Take care, and we will see you soon. All right. Cheers, Phil. Bye-bye.
Bye.